What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. We're going to be discussing some pretty notable NBA teams. We haven't really done that in a minute. And of course, give you our NBA tip of the day. And we're going to break down whether these teams are playoff caliber, contenders, just at the plan level, or if they're going to be just straight up lottery teams if they're bad, right? But first, make sure you join us every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our AMP Live. We'll be discussing the Stay Hot locks as well as whatever Thursday night game is happening. But before we get into all the amazing things at NBA tip of the day and talking about some of these potential teams and how good they could be, Matt, Theo, how good are you guys doing today? How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm a lot of bit under the weather, to be completely honest with you. In
mostly,
fact, I think
Matt, how are you?
I look comically sick right now if you're watching on the YouTube, and I believe I sound that way as well. But I didn't want to not be on the podcast.
Fair enough. Are you?
I wasn't on
you're
the
feeling
live
better than yesterday, right?
No, I feel pretty bad now. It was a bad call. I'd be like, yeah, I can join now, but
It's okay. It's okay. Theo, how are you doing?
I'll live.
I'm doing better than Matt.
Yeah, it's not saying much.
He's
I
over
can
here
hear myself. It's awful.
He's looking like he's got the suds from SpongeBob here. Like,
it's not a bad cough.
Bro,
I sound a lot worse than I feel. I don't feel that bad, but I sound like I'm on my deathbed. But
one can only hope.
Bro's having his flu game moment right now.
yeah,
This is what you get for pushing anti-Herbert narratives. This is, look at me, a strong, healthy individual versus someone who's been,
this is
his mind
Theo's
has been poisoned.
Sigma male versus beta male pushing anti.
This shows my grit, which is something that Herbert does not have.
I just need like a still from you right here, and then like above it, just he rooted for the Hornets for 3 weeks. You cheered for the Hornets for 3 weeks, and it's just you looking like pathetic and sad.
Yeah, as a Hornets fan, I feel like I've been sick my whole life.
Matt, we were really sad we missed you on the Tuesday live because we talked a little bit about the Heisman.
Did we?
And we were like,
do you have any idea how mad that award makes me?
I can imagine.
It makes me so mad.
So furious. Theo said it broke his heart, so.
The one thing that people, it's like, well, what about this quarterback or this quarterback or this quarterback? Like, how many different guys did you see that said about Drake May and Hendon Hooker and Bo Nix and Michael Penix? None of those guys deserve to be the Heisman anyway. Who cares? It should be defensive players.
Only defensive players, actually.
I don't even know if any defensive players had the caliber of season that like a Marvin Harrison Jr. had. None in particular really stand out to me. But like last year, Will Anderson absolutely should have been there. And this year, like all you really need is like Corum, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Caleb Williams. I think who else really needs to be?
If that was your lineup, that would be fine. I still think that's working kind of on the bias of like defensive players have to go particularly above and beyond to be included in that. I'll say this, anytime that there is a Heisman finalist that is a defensive player, that is actually the best player. That is actually the Heisman. Anytime that someone's allowed to be the token defensive player in the final 5 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson was a candidate last year.
Right. I think the best defensive player is Jalen Carter, if you watch the film, but he only had like 3 sacks this year. So like I can get not nominating Heisman based on just like watch the film as much as I would love for that to be the case. I do understand not doing it, but yeah, it's disappointing. Stetson Bennett is 25. He is as old as Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson won the Heisman in like 2016 or something like that.
Right. Oh my God. And the arguments for him, like, well, if you compare his stats in these ranked games and just look at his counting stats, come on, guys. Let's be real.
Let's have a little bit more nuance and
let's be honest.
But let's get into our NBA tip of the day, brought to you by our good friends over at AG1. Look, it's no secret. I care about my health. How else could I keep up winning back-to-back Battle of the Bands championships? You know, what can I say? It's a product that I use every day. Started taking AG1, and it's been super, super critical to my health. And with just one scoop of AG1, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day the right way. This delicious blend of ingredients supports gut health, boosts your immune system, nervous system, energy, recovery, focus, and even aging. For me, I just throw a scoop in a glass of water before I start my day because I feel like it just gives me that energy boost I need to keep on going. And the boost to mental clarity and alertness is really why over 7,000 people have given Athletic Greens a 5-star review. And if you're like me on a college student's budget, you get all of this for less than $3 a day. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it especially easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/stayhot. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/stayhot to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Matt, what is our NBA tip of the day?
I believe it's don't sleep on a healthy Lakers team, if that's what we talked about before the show.
It is.
They are not that bad. They're not nearly as bad as they seemed at the start of the season. And I think that Anthony Davis looks like himself. He got the flu yesterday, and people are like, typical day-to-day Davis. Typical. It's like, what? Maybe I'm biased because I'm sick, but to me it seems like that's like that's not like he got some lower body injury that's going to have him out for 2 weeks. It's like he has a cold.
He's just like you and I.
For like one day. It's like, okay. But no, they're not bad.
The shooting numbers have really rebounded recently, and the defense is still there. So, like, it's okay. They are near the top of the league in just high percentage looks. If you look at like where their shots come on the floor, they usually come from pretty safe spaces. And then you've got Anthony Davis now, who has kind of regained that touch from deep, something that he was missing for like long stretches over the last, like probably since the finals run. People were frustrated because he kept taking these deep mid-rangers and threes and they just weren't falling. So it's like, what exactly do you do here? But now recently over the last month or so, I mean, he's been great from those long mid-range spots, short mid-range spots, just mid-range in general. He has been absolutely fantastic. He has gained that touch again. And yeah, he's good. He is a very good player. And that gives them enough kind of outside shooting to be relevant. Like that, him and LeBron, there is enough that they're never going to be a great shooting team, right? They're never going to be just lighting it up from downtown, although they haven't been that bad from three recently. I know looking at their numbers, their corner threes are like hilariously bad, but when they shoot them from like straight on, it goes all right. And they've got the mid-range now with LeBron and AD, and they go to the rim a lot. They attack the rim a lot, and that's always a high percentage look. So yeah, it's a decent formula. I don't know if they have the ceiling that many people thought they would when you paired up AD and Westbrook and LeBron. In fact, they certainly don't. But I don't know where we're going to tier them, but I don't know if there's anything else to really say.
It's tough with the Lakers. They're 5.5 games back right now, but they're 7-3. I mean, if we're taking a look at the last 11, they're 8-3 in their last 11 games. And you can be like, oh, well, they've beat up on a bunch of nobodies. But like, winning the games that you're supposed to win is still the sign of a relatively good team. You're not scraping the bottom of the barrel. I think this can be a playoff team. Maybe we're still early enough in the season. I think they can kind of bounce back enough to get into the playoffs.
Their shooting has just been so terrible for the last, for at least for the start of the season. And the problem is that they're a team that on paper looks like they're going to be bad at shooting. So when you say, well, they've been shooting bad even by their standards, people kind of write that off as like, well, yeah, they're a bad shooting team.
Yeah.
But it's been another level of just like, how can this team possibly be shooting this poorly?
Right.
And as they start to rebound, they'll start to win more games. They're not that far off.
Right.
Their first 8 games, when you looked at the points per shot attempt, like we're in the 0th percentile, the like 5th percentile. Like it was just hilariously bad. Recently, they're at around 120 points per possession pretty frequently over the last month or so. That's a good mark to be at. And they're hitting that not all the time. There are definitely some stinkers in there. They played the Cavs, I think, last night, and it was just a horrific 3-point shooting night. There's always going to be those, and that's why I put them in like kind of this playoff, or not playoff, play-in tier to me. I don't think that they're going to be in the West like a top 6 seed. I just don't think that, like you said, Matt, their shooting isn't actually that good. It's not as bad as it has been, but I don't know if they have that kind of high-end offensive ceiling, even with AD and LeBron at this point, because of the role players. But I do think they can scrape by, win some games to get that kind of play-in conversation, and then anything can happen from there. And by anything, I mean getting through the play-ins and then losing in the first or second round.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be battling with anyone in the playoffs. They're not that good, but they're better than they have been. And that's at least worth
it's not
mentioning.
a completely lost season. It's not a completely lost season. That's kind of where I'm at with the Lakers. I don't know if there's any dissent or if we can move on for the next team. They're okay. They're fine. They're whatever.
Yeah, we had to talk about them for the thumbnail, for the clickbait. You got to talk about the LA.
Yeah,
Lakers.
you got to put LeBron, the thumbnail in the picture, and we will get 1 million views.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we'll get a sponsor from LeBron himself.
We'll get a Clutch deal. Clutch will call us and they'll say, "We saw your thumbnail.
Wow,
how would you like to join the Lakers?"
I guess you could say that's pretty clutch, huh?
And now we're not getting that. We're not getting that deal anymore.
We're not getting the deal. Anyway, do you want to talk about the Miami Heat? I feel like that's a team that we talked about at the beginning of the season, and they were not looking so hot. Jimmy Butler was not looking like Jimmy Butler anymore. And that trend has kind of held true.
I think he's been fine. We're just talking about the Lakers again. Like the Heat are just the Lakers again. Like what is their offensive ceiling? And to me, it's even more concerning than the Lakers because they don't have an Anthony Davis or a LeBron, right? Like Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are good players, although Bam has been a little bit disappointing this year. But they don't have that kind of ceiling that having LeBron and Anthony Davis gives you. And like where they're young players, right? It's just the Lakers. And people were concerned last year about the lack of offensive firepower on this Heat team. And it's funny looking back at it now because their offensive numbers weren't that bad. I mean, the Heat would kill to have the offensive numbers they had last year this season, because last year they were like 11th in points per possession, 5th in effective field goal percentage. They would kill for those numbers now. They're 26th and 25th there respectively now, and the only players they have under 25 are Nikola Jovic and Tyler Hero, right? So like is Tyler going to grow to another, like I'm kind of giving up on that. It's like, well, we need Jovic to like become a good star.
Wow, how long would that take? I like Jovic.
Yeah, I do too, but he's like a late first round pick, but he's the only like really unknown talent on that team right now to me, it feels like. So where is the second gear? I don't see it.
The offense is pretty pitiful. They're like bottom of the league in points per game and field goal percentage.
I lean that this team is probably a little bit more on the cooked side overall. They've just made one too many uninspiring moves in a row. Lowry is just not a great move. Tyler Hero is just not that great of an extension. He's good, I get it, but not really. Duncan Robinson's been a tough contract for them. It's like, man, they've done a very poor job of taking that next step, and they have a lot of role play. Like Dwayne Dedman, I think, is still getting minutes for them, and he can't play at all in the playoffs. He's a horrible defender.
I saw Haslam guarding Jason Tatum a couple nights ago. I saw that with my own 2 eyes in the year 2022. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's like Caleb Martin. It's like these, like who is going to take us? Who is going to break them out of this slump? Because Jimmy Butler is honestly playing fine. Like he hasn't been that bad this season. Maybe Adebayo steps up. I know that they're one of the bottom team in the league in terms of points in the paint. But it's like, how many years in a row have we been
he's
saying,
not like that on offense.
Right.
He's not like that, and he's never been like that. And as of right now, I have no reason to believe that he ever will be like that. You know, he's a good player. He's not dominating on offense. And if he was, you figure it would have splashed way more by now.
Yeah. I guess the solution or the turnaround would be like Duncan Robinson gets hot from 3 again, but sadly he has continued kind of the cold stretch that afflicted him at the end of last year. It's continued into this year. And if Bam turns it around and if Hero turns it around, I guess there's your formula. But it's, again, like you said, Matt, we've been kind of saying that for years now, and they've always been good. They've been good enough to make some deep playoff runs. Obviously, Butler has major amounts of dogs in him, and the coaching is good, and the defense is still good this season. But it's just, they just don't have the horses. To me, this is a lottery team. Honestly, I don't think they're going to turn it around. I think they might be a little injured. They're a little old. I think they're kind of banged up right now too. I just think that they remind me of the Packers. They really do. This team is like,
I think you said that at the beginning of the season too.
They're a good team.
It's not a bad comp. It's like, how many times can you run it back before it's like you run out of steam?
Right.
This team's out of steam.
The Packers have been running it back for a long time. I mean, there's a lot of differences. The Packers don't have like an Eric Spoelstra, right? It's not quite that level of consistent coaching over the last 10 years or so. He's probably the NFL equivalent to Spoelstra is probably like Andy Reid or something. I don't know. But it's just they're led by old players basically, and they've been running it back, and they've needed to make moves. Like they needed the KD move, or Donovan Mitchell or something like that. They needed something like that to happen this offseason to open their window, but they kept running things back, and the window closed smaller and smaller every year. And they always got there. They always got to the end. But much like the Packers, they weren't ever the best team. So, and just like the Packers this year, they re-upped, they signed some questionable contracts, right? Aaron Rodgers is old. They extended him this long amount of time for all this money. There is no Heat equivalent of trading away Devontae Adams, I think. But it's kind of they're kind of just in a similar spot. Their window was closed at the last year, and now you pay the price. I guess the other thing is maybe Oladipo, who came back last night, could give him some sort of spark, but I don't believe that at all. Looking at his field goal percentage over the last couple of years, it's 49%, 47%, 50, 47, and then 42. Last year, it was 61 in the regular season, which is really good. And then in the playoffs, it dropped down to 43. So it's been above 50% for like a very small stretch in the regular season last year. And then it's basically been pretty inefficient since 2016, and he's 30 years old. So like, I don't think that he's really going to give
the only solution I could envision would be like, you get playoff Jimmy Butler for the regular season. But unless you get
he's playing all right. He's not the problem.
He's playing fine, but you would need him to be like the best. You would need him to be like an MVP at this point.
Right. Maybe he could turn into like DeMar DeRozan last year, the rest of the season, or something like that. But I don't know, man. This team is, I agree with you, Matt. I think that they're closer to the Cook's side. I think by the end, they could just kind of be shutting this thing down and try to infuse some young talent high in the draft. I think that's where this thing is going to end up. But I'd love for them to prove me. I'd love for them to prove me wrong. I like the Heat.
Yeah, I don't think anyone hates the Heat.
I think they're a play-in team.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to be quite that bad, and I think they've still got enough pieces and enough of a core and enough chemistry there to avoid the play-in. But it's tough. It's close.
Yeah, I mean they're behind. They're like half a game behind Washington right now. They're probably better than the Wizards. It's
still very early in the season. Yeah. They can still heat up a little bit more. I would guess that their shooting luck looks pretty bad up to this point, considering how bad their offense has been. But like, it's not built well. It's not a well-built team, and it's been going on too long.
They can still heat up.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can heat up and stay hot,
Right.
Yeah.
No, but, Heat are an interesting team. You're right, Theo. They're just the Lakers again.
Or maybe they're the Titans, where the Titans are the NFL equivalent, where like the thing they lean on, like Derrick Henry, maybe Jimmy Butler is Derrick Henry, but it's a little bit too old to just completely rely on him, and the rest of the pieces are like a little, questionable. I don't know what the NFL equivalent is, but all I know is they're not that good. They are sadly not that good.
Are the 76ers that good? That's the real question. Let's stay in the East for a little bit. Are the 76ers that good? They've had James Harden playing all right. They have Embiid putting up 30 a game.
They're not I don't think they're a finals contender. I don't know why this version of the 76ers would accomplish maybe where other teams fell short. But I do think they're good. I do think they're a team that can make a deep playoff run, even though they've been a little bit disappointing to begin this season. That's kind of the sense I have for a couple reasons. I think that there's reasons to believe they're going to regress positively. This, believe it or not, is the worst team in the paint this season. The worst. They are shooting, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but I know they're 30th out of 30. And that's bad when you have Joel Embiid. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen when you have Tyrese Maxey, a really athletic guard who can drive. James Harden, right? Who's maybe not really athletic at this point, but has never been a bad player, like getting to the paint and scoring, right? It should not be this way. Their defense is pretty good. I do think Embiid is trending up this season. He's kind of got off to a disappointing start, wasn't really exerting his authority, and maybe still isn't. It's still a lot of mid-range stuff. And like I said, the paint points haven't really been there. The paint efficiency hasn't really been there. But I think Doc Rivers is not the world's most well-loved coach, but it is something that can turn around. I do think it is kind of a mentality thing, like get to the paint. I think over the course of the season, it's something, because it's a clear weakness, right? And I think they're going to really focus on it, and they have the personnel. It's hard for me to believe they're going to end this low when it comes to paint points. I think Harden obviously is coming back from injury, but I did kind of like what I saw from him earlier in the season. I thought he looked a little bit more dynamic than he did last year coming off an offseason. And I know he's been hurt, and maybe he'll get hurt again, and same thing with Embiid. But I think there's reasons, if the defense is somewhat legit, which it is, I think there's reason to believe that they can have some positive regression on offense and turn into a pretty good team. I don't know if they'll win the finals, but a threat in the East. I still do believe in them a little bit, even though it's been a disappointing start.
It's interesting you bring up the paint points number, because Embiid is also having his lowest number of rebounds since his rookie season.
Yeah, I'd like to just see him dominated in the under the basket a little bit more. It hasn't really been happening this season, and I think it's slowly ticking back up, and who knows why. I can't really know why. I don't know if, Matt, you have any theories on that, but yeah, I think they can get better. I think they can get better there. Obviously, it's bad that they're not there right now, right? But I do think they can get better in that area. I do believe Embiid is going to flip a switch a little bit more than he has over the first couple games here, and be a little bit closer to what we saw last season.
They're the Ohio State Buckeyes of the NBA, and drawing fouls is their bubble screen. They're soft. They'd rather try to draw fouls than actually go out and score. They do it too much. It kills them. It kills them. They're a horrible team to watch because of it too. I don't. If it scores, I get it. I've never been a Harden hater, but like, go watch these games. Like, why is this team 30th in points in the paint? That's a great question. Why are they like that? and Doc Rivers to Ryan Day, it's not a horrible comp. It's
you're right.
They just the mentality is not there for this team, and that's what concerns me. Plus, I mean, part of it is Harden has missed a lot of time, obviously too. Yeah. And I do think that they'll be better. I don't look at a 12-12 record, a quarter of the way through the season and be like, well, I guess this is a 500 team forever. Like, I know,
yeah,
that's not how that works. But like, yeah, in the long run, I would be very surprised if they made the finals. That's how I'll put it. I like, it's not impossible. If you told me that was your pick, I could I get how it could happen.
Right.
It'd be very surprising to me.
I think the other thing with the Sixers that has always rung true, it's like, even if like they are playing their best basketball and they get to be like the 1 seed, right? Do you trust this team to stay healthy in the playoffs? No.
No. Don't.
And I don't think their defensive personnel is all that good either. I kind of think they have a lot of problems. Embiid is awesome. Outside of that, you start getting real. Harden and Maxey out there is like not moving me. And you got to get Harden to the postseason healthy. It's just a lot of ifs.
Maxey's
There's mentality
hurt now
problems
too, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a lot of things with that team. They're talented, though.
Yeah, I don't see why this version of the 76ers would accomplish what previous versions couldn't, but I do think they can get to the same spot eventually. I guess that's kind of where I'm at. And like you said, Matt, they're soft, they're flopping and all that. That's why their points in the paint are so low. But they were like that last year, right? And they were 11th in points in the paint, right? It's not like I think they weren't flopping and drawing fouls last season, and they were still like a decent team in the paint, and they could still, score baskets down there, which they just can't do right now. So even if I think that's a pretty good expectation for them, is like, can they get to the previous iterations of the 76ers? And I think they can. They might have they have all the same problems, and they'll probably come back to bite them in the playoffs again. But I do think that they can also find some of the same success once Harden gets a little bit more in a groove coming off of his injury. And I do think it's not like he's going to go 2 games and get hurt again, knock on wood. So I think he will get more in a groove as the season progresses here. And
yeah, I think they're a playoff team. I think that's a tier I would put them in.
I think we can all, they're just not a contender, but they'll be a solid team. All right, you gotta talk about, I should have honestly just worn my jersey for this. Gotta talk about the MVP of the league, De'Aaron Fox and the Sacramento Kings. Theo's like, which one?
Guys, there's one of the three. There's one of 3 teams you could be talking about here.
No, we're not talking about the Cavs today. We are talking about the other 2, though. We gotta talk about
beam,
the baby. No.
Yeah.
I like that big old beam they've got. That was a great idea.
It's so sick.
I wish it was bigger. I think in the future they need to make it way bigger because it's a little narrow for my tastes right now. I think the whole stadium, it needs to be like people living by the stadium can't sleep because it's like
good lord.
It's like sunshine outside. It's like day because it's like flashing through their homes and like illuminating everything. Like the whole state of California can kind of see it on the horizon a little bit. I need this beam to be really huge. It's a little bit too small right now. I think it's a great idea. It needs to be like 17 times as like wide, and you need to like hook it up to some nuclear power plant to make it go really high in the sky and get really bright.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Theo. Just really go above and beyond on the light pollution.
They could shoot
California.
They could shoot it off a satellite and have it bounce back on the team stadium that they just beat, and then like fry it or something.
I think Adam Silver might have something to say
Theo, I think what
that.
you're suggesting is domestic terrorism.
The Kings, yeah. Well, it's the Kings. They've been bad long enough that they can really go all out when they win a game. They can commit a little domestic terrorism as a treat and bounce lasers off the moon and whatever. They can have whatever light show they want when they win a game these days. But I like that. I think they're good. I'll say right off the bat, I think it's a bit tough in the West because it's deep. Like to say they're a playoff team when they might fall like to 7th in the rankings is well, maybe you'd call that play-in. But I do think that this is like a dangerous team, and I'm going to put them in a playoff tier, even though I think they might end up in the play-ins. But they're exciting. There's a bunch of 3-level scorers all over the place. You've got this well-rounded playmaking big that is really good on these pick and rolls, and then a bunch of athletic guys around him who can shoot and finish and all of that. Like it's an exciting offensive team, a really exciting offensive team. And every time I look at a Kings score, they put up like 143 points or something, and
they're second in the league behind the Boston Celtics in scoring, but they're also like top 5 in like team field goal percentage, which is crazy. Like they're not only like one of the most just like you said, they'll put up 150 on you, and they'll shoot 50% while doing it.
Well, it's hard to put up 150 when you're shooting 40.
I guess, yeah.
I'll say that. But Yeah, they're exciting, and they're fun, right? It's 3 levels score. It's not all at the paint. It's not all three. It's kind of a little bit of everything with them, and that I think makes them dangerous, right? The shot selection I think is very good, and it's tough to defend when you're really good at mid range, and they are very good at mid range. I mean, it's tough to defend because you want to take away the high volume shots. You're going to have guys at the paint. You're going to have guys on the perimeter. If you can like kind of get in between those and still hit shots efficiently, I mean, that's been the formula for the Suns these past couple of years, and they've been incredibly. That's been the formula for a lot of great regular season teams, or even just teams in general, playoff teams. Is that mid range game isn't dead. If you're really good at it, you're really good at it. But if you're not really good at it, you shouldn't be doing it. That's kind of the formula. Right. But when you're really good at it, it is really helpful because you're going to get a lot of open looks in that area. And if you can knock them down, you're the Kings and you're scoring 115, 120 points a game or whatever they are.
Yeah. They play the Bucks tonight, and I really want to watch that game. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I think they did a good job in free agency this year. I think they did a good job this offseason getting a lot of pieces around the core players they have. That was their problem last year, is like they didn't have everybody who could shoot the ball, and now you get Herter, who's so good off the ball, and you get Malik Monk, who was so good for the Lakers last year. Davion Mitchell's taken a little bit of a step up, and Keegan Murray has been maybe a little bit underwhelming, considering that I think we had pretty high expectations for him.
He looked a lot better in summer league and
yeah.
Than against real NBA players, shockingly. But it's the depth they've added. They're a totally different team, and they're playing with a lot of energy. So
I cannot believe Harrison Barnes is like I can't believe he's only 30, by the way. I thought he was way older than that, but I guess not. And he's also someone who I remember when he hit that game-winning shot against Phoenix last year, and he was after that like MVP caliber. Do you remember that last season when like Harrison Barnes was like an MVP candidate over the first, like it was a really small sample size. It was like the first 3 weeks of the season he was balling. That's still a good player as much as he's kind of faded into, I think, relative obscurity considering what he used to be on the Warriors. Obviously, anybody on the Warriors is going to get a lot of hype, but again, another 3-level score. It's a fun team. Yeah. And they did a really good job in free agency. I don't know why the Lakers, they were pretty strapped for cash, but letting Malik Monk go was unfortunate for them.
It was a mistake. They should have kept him.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is it's still plus 13,000 to bet on the Sacramento Kings to win the NBA Finals. You can still do it.
You could.
You can still do it.
Your boy Fox, too. Since about the halfway point of last season, Fox has really become a decent perimeter shooter. That was always the big question with him is like, can he a guard who can't shoot from the outside, like how valuable really is that in today's NBA? And I guess we'll never know with Fox because he's shooting a very respectable 37% from three. His short, mid-range, and accuracy at the rim is amazing this year. From all levels, the long mid-range, the accuracy there is fantastic. The three accuracy is above average. I mean, he has been incredible this season. And that pick and roll with him and Sabonis is, I don't know what exactly the numbers are when they get into that action, but their offensive rating in that action has got to be like off the charts good because it just shreds every time.
Yeah. I mean, I've been kind of a pseudo Kings fan, but I don't even think I would have predicted them to actually be good this year. So
I could sort of see it. Like they had a bunch of guys who were maybe talented, but are they really going to put it all together like this? And they totally have. They totally have. So I think they're a playoff team. I think maybe in the standings of the West, maybe they get in the play-ins, but I would feel pretty good betting on this team in the play-ins. I think that they're really explosive and they're the 4th seed in the West right now. So who knows if they'll even fall off? But yeah,
they're a fun team. All right, we'll knock the other team out while we're at it. The Atlanta Hawks. That's kind of another weird team. I don't know. I feel like they actually had higher expectations than the than the Kings, but they're still the 4th seed, but I feel like they haven't been like
it's weird
all that crazy. It's weird they're the 4th seed, but they don't feel like they're the 4th seed, if that makes sense.
People are so down on Trae Young right now. I mean, he had the bad playoff series against the Heat in last year's playoffs, and this season he's been a bit underwhelming, and he just got in the fight with the head coach over the dumbest thing too, like reading that article and like why he didn't play in that game. It was like an argument about if he was going to go get some work done on his injured shoulder and then go to shoot around, or just go to shoot around, or like it was like something about like, are you going to go to shoot around, or are you just going to get some work done on the shoulder? It was like something like that. And then there was some miscommunication that ended up with him like not making the trip. It was just stupid and weird. And the vibes around this team just feel a little bit off, even though they're 13-10 and, right in a position to, 13-10 isn't like anything. Oh my God, amazing. But it's a good record, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely feels a little bit like this Hawks season is off the rails a little bit.
Even though they're the 4th seed in the East, it's wild.
Yeah, they're a little bit maybe not bought in, or I don't know what word you want to use for it, but I actually kind of like Atlanta right now. I think the defense has looked a lot better. I think Clint Capella has looked a lot better. Kind of annoyingly so, because I like Okongwu a lot, but he is he's been developing his mid-range a lot. He's been hitting some shots more so, and I like to see that. AJ Griffin has been a very big add for them. That was obviously a solid pick. And you overall, if the defense is good and you still have to figure some stuff out on offense, it's kind of what you predicted. And right now the Hawks, they have a winning record. If they had won 1 or 2 more of the games they played, would we be talking about them? No. Yeah. I think it's way too early in the season to panic. I think Trae needs to start shooting a little bit better. But
maybe. But
yeah,
he's got
to learn some off-ball stuff. He's got to get a little bit better at that.
Yeah,
they're 6th right now in points per possession allowed on defense. That's the first time since 2016 they've been even above average in that category. So the defense is much better. Trae is still not very good at it, but the rest of them are all right. So I have a question, because I've seen a lot of the one and only Bill Simmons has sparked a lot of Trae Young dialogue, because on their podcast, they had a big list of guards they would take over Trae Young over the next 7 years. And
can't wait.
One poll that I saw was, who would you rather have for the next 7 years, Halliburton or Trae Young? And the winner of that poll was Halliburton. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And I'm not even that mad about that. I can see why you would pick Halliburton. I actually can. But I wanted to know where you guys were at with that kind of conversation, and maybe how you feel about Trae Young with how he's done so far this season.
It's a tough one.
It is. It's legitimately a tough one. Blaiden, I see you rolling your eyes, but that question it's a real question, I think.
It is. I mean, you can start off by saying that Trae Young is a terrible defender. He's a really horrible defender. And to an extent, you can hide that in the regular season, and I don't think that matters as much as, like, half the game is offense and half the game is defense. Like, it doesn't work like that. Don't get me wrong. But it matters.
It does.
It matters a lot. And Trae Young, he's got a lot more volume scoring to his game, and I don't think Halliburton has that mentality to him. But I also think Halliburton is the more, like, overall efficient player.
There's no argument about that. He
doesn't turn the ball over as much.
And he's been the more consistent shooter every single year of his career, basically. Like, Trae Young is always, and it's part of that is shot selection, but Halliburton has always been extremely high when it comes to just like points per shot and field goal percentage. Trae has always been a volume scorer, but not quite that type of efficiency. And he's not, in my opinion, he's not quite the type of playmaker that Halliburton has been so far this season, even though he's got a lot of assists. I do think Halliburton almost has the edge in that category as well.
Well, I don't know. I think the other thing with Trae Young is that his off-ball game is not that good. So it's like, Trae Young is awesome. I think he's one of the best offensive catalysts in the NBA. I think that he's maybe a little bit too much like the center of the team and doesn't work well, not from like a personality standpoint, but from a play style standpoint with other people. Whereas Halliburton is kind of the opposite. The thing holding Halliburton back in this debate is that he's never going to put up the point numbers, like the points per game numbers, to get himself respected enough.
Right.
And there's a lot of players like that, like Steve Nash and Chris Paul, but both those guys are probably underrated all time right now. So it's a tough one. Halliburton has not played that much basketball.
Yes, he's 2 years younger.
And Trae Young is in a slump right now. But it's a good debate. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to talk about playmaking, Trae Young has a much larger sample size of like really high level playmaking, of being like one of the best playmakers in basketball.
I don't think he is, though.
I
don't think he is one of the best. I think that he gets a lot of assists because he's so ball dominant, right? I don't think that he quite is, like, he's not Chris Paul level as a passer. He's not bad at it, but I don't think he's like one of the, like, oh my, when you talk about playmaking, you got to put Trae Young's name right at the top.
I think you kind of do have to. It's like Chris Paul, LeBron.
It's not Trae Young after those guys. I mean, Halliburton's better at it, in my opinion. I really think that he's seeing the court and playmaking a little bit better this season. I think that Young, when it comes to the shot selection,
like
Trae Young's shot selection just has been. And if last year's version of Trae Young is the real Trae Young, then I would take that, because last year he was creating off the dribble at a really high volume, and last year he was actually pretty damn efficient as well. On top of all that, that's something he hasn't really put together, like all three of those things in a season to that point. But last year he was, and I think like last year's version of Trae Young, I would take over Halliburton. But every other year, it hasn't quite been that level of basketball, in my opinion.
Maybe.
So he's got to turn it around. If he can start stringing together years like he had last season, and if he can get back to that level this year, I would definitely take Young over Halliburton, who's a little bit more of a amazing role player maybe right now than a offensive catalyst, like you said, Matt. But I think it's a very real debate if Trae Young doesn't shoot better. I don't know what to say.
I don't want to put too much into his shooting slump. I just think they have very different strengths and flaws, and they play very different, and it depends on what you want. But I think ultimately you're going to see a version of Tyrese Halliburton that is pretty fantastic, but maybe not putting up 30 a game, and you're going to see a version of Trae Young that is shooting better than this, but maybe not great off ball or playing great defense.
And the other thing about Halliburton is his defense is not that good. Like, I would not consider his defense, like, it's not like, oh well, Young's defense is
levels to bad defense though, and Trae Young is like historically one of the worst NBA defenders ever, and Halliburton is just not good.
Right. It's not like we're comparing, it's not exactly a 1-for-1 Trae Young, Chris Paul like comparison here when it comes to defense and efficiency. But yeah, I think it's a real debate. I think I would. I don't know if Halliburton is past Young yet, because it is a shooting slump. We're not that far into this season, but I do want to see. I do think like Halliburton's like, his efficiency in playmaking, like, it's crazy right now. It is really, really off the charts just how often he is creating assists when he touches the ball or putting the ball in the basket, and it's elevating a Pacers team that I didn't. They're not that good, but I didn't think they'd even be. I thought they would be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, and they're not quite at that level. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a real question. I still lean Young, but Halliburton is coming up from behind. And overall, with the Hawks, I don't see this team winning the finals at all. I might put them in the playoff.
And honestly, I don't. Going back to Halliburton for just 1 second, I don't think he's that bad of a defender at all. I really don't.
No.
I don't think he's that far of a negative defender, if he even is. I agree that he's not like, the obvious comp for him is Chris Paul. Okay, maybe he's not a Chris Paul like guy, but he's the gap between him and Trae Young defensively, I think is noticeable, pretty significant. I think.
Yeah, but the gap between most people and Trae Young defensively is.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah.
do we
I don't
agree?
think-
Like, with all
the
that being
Hawks are
said,
a playoff team.
this kind of seems like all doom and gloom about the Hawks. I mean, they are better defensively. There is reason to believe that their offense will get better, and they're already 13-10. So
They'll figure it out.
I think they'll figure it out. Obviously, it's kind of a, like you said, Matt, maybe they're not quite bought in right now, and the vibes are a little toxic. But I do think that this is a playoff team. I want to preface, like, we just like Halliburton. I like Halliburton a lot. I'm not exactly like low on Trae Young. I think what he did last
You
year
better
was
not
pretty,
be low on Trae Young, Theo.
I think what he did last year was pretty incredible. And if he can get back to that level, I think that they can cruise to a top 6 seed. So that's what you're hoping for. But right now, I do want to see improvement. And I think some people are maybe a bit too low on him. I wouldn't vote for Halliburton at this point, but I think it's a very interesting and worthy conversation to have if we're going to just have a barbershop conversation about comparing two players.
Barbershop.
I agree.
Shall we talk about the Denver Nuggets, another potential playoff team?
Potential playoff team. I think the conversation is, playoff. Will they win the finals or will they make the playoffs? I think.
Yeah. Do you think they're a contender then, Theo?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, we haven't quite seen Jamal Murray bounce back in the way that we'd like to see for them, but Jokic is still like incredible. And I think as Murray plays more basketball, I think he's going to get better and better. And overall, I still am relatively high on this Nuggets team. I don't know if I would bet on them to win the West, but when you look at what the top of the West looks like, and I know the Warriors are starting to rebound in a pretty big way here, and you still got to get past the Suns and all that, but I don't know. I like them a lot. I think that they're 14-10 right now. That's not a bad record at all. They're top 10 in offense. They are not that good at defense, but they've still got a really high level offense. They're I think third right now, and I think there's reason to believe that as time goes on, this could be the best offense in the league as Jamal Murray gets kind of his sea legs as the season goes on. Some of the other players on that team, I think that this could be the best offense in basketball with Jokic running the thing and more talent around him. I mean, they've made the playoffs with absolutely no one around Jokic in the past, and it's just hard for me to believe that they won't, be better and make deeper runs this year than they have in the past couple. So I don't know if I think they're a contender. I think anything short of a finals appearance, at least for them, would be maybe a Western Conference finals appearance for them would be a bit of a disappointment. I mean, they've been in the playoffs for so long at this point with no finals appearance that it's about time that you get your 2-time MVP, back-to-back MVP, a really deep run and really make some noise. And I think anything short of that would be a bit of a disappointment. So I've got to put them in the contenders range at this point, even though they're not at the top 5 in the league or anything in efficiency, and they need to figure that defense out. And do they have the personnel to do that? That is the big question. That might sink them, but
right.
I do like them. Sue me.
Yeah, I think their personnel defensively, I think they added some guys that I like. I liked KCP and Bruce Brown. And these were not bad signings, but ultimately, I think they've still got a number. Their 3 most important players are all not good defenders. That is very hard to get away with.
Yeah.
And it's like a good defense is not built around like, well, here's our offensive guys, and then here's the defensive guys. You need to have guys who are both, I know that sounds simple and stupid, but like a defensive specialist is almost not a thing unless you're a center. You look at a Celtics team, that's a team that's got like guys who do it on both ends. It's going to be really hard for them to set lineups, and it's in the playoffs. It's less about like, do you have a few guys who can be really strong on defense, and more about who's your weakest link. And to me, the Nuggets, I think, have a little bit of a weakest link.
Right.
The West is so weak that they have a chance. I really don't hate them. The Warriors are not that great right now. The Clippers have been shaky, although Kawhi hasn't played. But if we get to the playoffs and it's like Warriors team looks like last year's Warriors team, Clippers team looks like totally healthy like we expect, and the West isn't as wide open, I don't see it happening for them. It's not impossible, but I think they need a little bit of help.
Yeah, I think their starting five, their defensive numbers aren't so bad right now. Their most like popular lineup or their most common lineup of Jokic, Gordon, Porter, Caldwell Pope, and Murray. The defensive numbers with that lineup specifically isn't that bad, but after that it kind of falls off a cliff. Like it's kind of just those five with a decent offensive rating, and then and at this point then you're getting into really small sample sizes. But yeah, I don't know if they would win the finals last year when the Warriors looked like this. I don't think they'll win the finals this year. I can't imagine them like going up against a Boston Celtics team, for example, and beating them. There's not a lot of teams in the league right now that I can see going up against this Boston team and beating them. Honestly, they're just
right.
A complete buzzsaw right now. But yeah, I think you got to put them as contenders in the West. They're a team that could do it. I believe in them a little bit more than the Kings because they've got that MVP candidate, and I think you've got one of those guys who is on the level of the Currys and the Giannis's and the LeBrons of the world. Like he is a tier one elite player in Nikola Jokic. And usually teams that have those guys win the NBA finals. So, or I don't know if it'll be him specifically. Maybe Tatum is making that leap this year and he wins MVP and wins the finals and all this. Maybe it's Giannis again. Maybe it's who knows. But the Nuggets have one of those guys. They already have an elite offense that I think can get even better. If they can figure some things out defensively, I think this team is a contender. I think this is the one contender that I feel better about the Nuggets than any of the other teams we've talked about. Maybe the Sixers second, the Kings third of the teams we've talked about.
I guess I could see that. And they've been in the playoffs before, unlike the Kings. Right? The Kings have so many guys that like they make the playoffs this year. It's like who was the Timberwolves last year where they were like having the parade as if they won the finals. And
well, the Kings would be very valid in doing that. I couldn't blame them. I hope they do if they make the playoffs.
Yeah. The Nuggets were in the Western Conference Finals like 2 years ago, and the roster isn't that different. It's just a case of can their high-end players get to that level again? And we'll see. It's tough. I know that I've seen studies and stats about how guys do in years after they've torn their ACL or come back from a major injury. It's almost always down. So maybe it's a stupid bet to bet on that coming back up. But I do think like just logically, it makes more sense that a guy coming off an injury will get better the farther removed that he is. So I don't know.
Right.
Hopefully they lose to the Suns. I shouldn't say that I like the Nuggets. I actually don't necessarily root for them and I don't like them that much, but I do like them in terms of like, I like Jokic and how the offense functions. Yeah. So we'll see. Respectable.
We've got one more team, and that would be the New Orleans Pelicans. Are we banking on Zion staying healthy, Matt? You've been a big advocate for like.
That's a tough one. Contenders, the Pelicans. That's a tough one. I don't know. Maybe I'll lean yes.
Oh,
but like,
I really thought of all people you would not be.
Well, I think you can call them contenders, but maybe note that their injury luck is probably like their injury likelihood is probably a little bit higher than it should be. I think they're a very well balanced team. I think they're a lot better defensively than I thought they would be. At least Herb Jones really stepped up. Like that's their big thing. I do wonder how they would hold up in like a very tough playoff series if their teams could find players to attack, because they're definitely on that team. But I'll go ahead. I'll say, they're not my pick to make it out of the West. They're not my favorites. But if they did, I wouldn't be like in shock. I'd say, wow, that's pretty impressive. But I guess you could see it. You could figure it out how it happens.
Yeah, what is the stat? Like usually teams that win the final are like top 10 in both offense and defense, right? They are right now. They fit that description, and they've got like if Zion, we talk about you need a superstar to win the finals. You need someone who can really put you on their back and have him carry you. I think they've got like Zion is kind of bordering on that range. He could at any moment he could go on this run where it's like, holy cow, that is that is the dude. And it has, I don't know if he's quite on that type of run right now, but he is very, 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 very good and has the potential to just totally, I mean, breakout is kind of the wrong word because he's already just extremely good. But this was a team that really hung tough with the Suns last year. I was very impressed by them in that playoff series. And I think you add a great player to the mix and it's already paying huge dividends. Like, why not? Right? Why not? And you guys all know that I love Brandon Ingram, and he's never missed a shot in his whole life, as far as I can tell. And yeah, I'm a big Pelicans fan. I agree that their defensive numbers right now don't quite match. Maybe obviously Herb Jones is totally fantastic when it comes to defense, and I think they're extremely well coached. And I think that's maybe the main thing that stuck out to me when they played the Suns last year. Is I think they kind of out coached and out hustled Monty Williams' team, who was coach of the year. I think they're a fantastically well-run organization at the moment, which is weird because they're not really historically a relevant franchise. But yeah, I like them a lot. I think that maybe even more than the Nuggets. I think that obviously the Nuggets have a better best player, but
yeah, I was just agreeing. I think I can see that take. I don't know if I'll go all the way there yet, but if you said like, yeah, I like the Pelicans a little bit more than the Nuggets right now. Valid.
Yeah. So yeah, they're quite good. Go Pelicans. I think they just got a bunch of players I like on that team too. I like Zion. Yeah. I like Brandon Ingram a lot. I like CJ McCollum. I actually do kind of like Jose Alvarado and his like little crafty heel shit that he does. So yeah, I hope they can make it, man. They've got Willie Herman Gomez deep on the bench from the movie star. So let's see a Pelicans run, man.
Yeah, let's see a Sacramento Kings run. Actually, that's really who we need to.
The Kings versus Pelicans Western Conference Finals.
Good Lord,
it's going to be electric.
That stadium's going to be filled to the brim. It's going to be.
I wonder what the ratings would do on that.
I think they'd be pretty good. I think people would tune in just to be like, it's like, what's going on here?
I don't know, man. I think they'd say no LeBron. I'm not.
I think they'd prefer rating wise like Warriors Lakers, man. I think that would do better.
You don't think the TV deals would go ludicrous with this one?
I don't know, but Zion would be on every single commercial for the rest of time if they made it to the Western Conference Finals.
That'd be
awesome. De'Aaron Fox supremacy, I fear. But I think that pretty much wraps things up for us for another beautiful NBA Wednesday, or Thursday for everyone listening, but Wednesday for us. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps things up. Make sure, again, you tune into the AMP Live Thursday, 5:30 Eastern time. We'll be talking about the Stay Hot Locks, Thursday Night Football. It'll be fun. Download the AMP app, buy Amazon, search up Stay Hot, and then give us a follow, turn on notifications so you can know when we're live. Tune in. We might bring some people up to chat with us after we do the locks. But actually, I won't be present for that, I fear. I'll make sure to send you guys my locks for the draft because I have to take an exam. My last exam for the semester. And then bros are looking at me like I just said the most like incriminating thing in the world.
I'm just gassed, that's all.
Just gassed. But yeah, Matt and Theo will be running the AMP. So make sure you guys tune into that. But yeah, I'll send them my locks so they know who to draft for me. But as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you all on the flippity flop.